I'm glad you asked me about it because I'm just going to be talking to now the heads of the airlines and everything else. So I was all set before we had the rigged election to give out a brand new gorgeous system to one company that was going to do the whole thing, one of the best companies in the world that you know very well. You know, there are 3 or 4 of them that do it. And when they took over, Buttigieg, who has no clue, you know, he drives to work on his bicycle with his, in all fairness, with his husband on the back, which is a nice, loving relationship. But he didn't have a clue. This guy didn't have a clue. And he's actually a contender for president. Between him and Crockett, you can have that party. But he didn't know what he was doing. And he took what they call dry systems where you have wires in the earth, buried in the earth or whatever. And then you have the open air systems where you have satellites, and you can't mesh them. Anybody would know that if you went through about 2 months of study in school, if you studied that kind of thing, and he did. They spent tens of billions of dollars trying to take old, broken equipment and merging it into existing new equipment with brand new equipment. It's one of the greatest. They spent like $40 billion. And what they did is they made it worse because it doesn't work together. You can't make it work together. If you have a satellite system, you need satellite. If you don't, they had all these different technologies, some of them 50 years old, and they're trying to mesh them in. And they end up spending twice the money they should have. You could have bought a whole new system. So we have a very good guy who you all know, Sean Duffy, is head of transportation. And I've given him a 10-minute lesson in buying. And he's become really good. And we are now in the market to buy a gorgeous, brand new system. The helicopter that crashed into the plane at 400 feet, it shouldn't have been. What would have happened is all sorts of bells and sirens would have been going off 3 minutes before that accident happened, if you had the right equipment, but they didn't. And the new equipment is unbelievable what it does. You can have, you don't even, well, I was going to say something, but you always, in my opinion, you always need pilots. I want pilots. But you wouldn't even have to have pilots. This system is so incredible what they can do, but we have a system that's obsolete. And what they did is the worst. They tried to combine the really old, broken stuff with the new stuff, and you can't combine it, and anybody should have known. So Biden, do you think Biden figured this out? I don't think so, fellas. Do you think he has any clue? He doesn't know what the hell's happening. So here's the story. We're going to be buying a brand new, it's going out to bid very soon, brand new state-of-the-art system that will cover the entire world. I'll give you an example. When my pilot, now I have military pilots, but prior to that I have very good pilots, great pilots. They would land, and I won't tell you which country, but they would use the system of another country. They wouldn't even use the system of the United States. So if I'm landing in New York or Florida or Tennessee, they're using a system from another country. I said, why is that? And they were, you know, they're not into business, but they're just saying, our system doesn't work, sir. And I said, boy, that's pretty sad. But we were all set to give it out to, you know, look, you have a Raytheon and you have different companies like that, numerous companies. And you have companies that would do it, like an IBM, as an example. And you give out one deal, one contract. They gave out hundreds of contractors. They had diggers, they had non-diggers, they had people that focused on satellites. They had hundreds of different contracts. One contract where one guy is controlling everything.